What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Showcase Sports Show, Episode 2. I am your co-host, Griffin Conant, alongside my other co-host, Elijah Cornejo. How we doing, E? Week 2. How we feeling?
I'm doing well, Griff. My happiness has returned. Sports are back in full force now. You know, I've spent literally all week watching baseball, watching basketball, and now watching hockey, and I just couldn't be more happy.
It's been overwhelming, to say the least. I've been in a couch coma, honestly. I haven't moved since, actually, the last time we've done a podcast, so this is the first time I've moved in about a week.
That's great to hear.
But I wouldn't miss this for the world, E. A lot has happened within the last week, and we have some big news coming from the gridiron here. Elijah, do you want to spill the tea?
Griff, I know you're a God-fearing man. Have you ever heard of the story of Lazarus in the Bible?
Great story. How could I forget?
For anyone that doesn't know out there, Lazarus was a man that was in the Bible, and he passed away, and Jesus performed a miracle and brought him back to life.
Came back to life.
Well, something similar has happened. Thank you for the ad-lib, by the way, Griff. That was great.
Of course.
Something similar has happened.
Big news.
The XFL has died and come back to life. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson,
Born again.
Former Miami Hurricane, has purchased the league. He has bought the league. They're coming back, baby.
Former WWE superstar. This is just a match made in heaven, I think.
This is absolutely true. The Rock paired with Vince McMahon to own the league. You can't have a better 1-2 punch. They already did it in WWE, like you said.
Kings of entertainment, those two guys. And I think he only purchased, I think it was $15 million altogether for Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. So,
but that's perfect. That's all they needed to keep the league up and running. So now they're able to come back. Before this, they were toast, man. They did not have the money or the revenue to be able to play. The fans were so important for them to be at the games, to use that revenue to keep pumping it into the league and stuff like that. Well, that obviously ended with COVID. So once that happened, it was a death sentence. And the league was done.
And that was a real shame too, because I thought they had something good going on there, and they I thought the product was honestly pretty surprisingly good.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think what was it, the AAF came out. That was the year before the XFL.
Right.
And that was just kind of a dumpster fire of a league, to be honest with you. The play was not good. I mean, it was entertaining. It was still football, but it was rough, man. And the XFL completely ran it differently. They had intriguing rules. I don't know. They just did a lot better job of promoting the players, promoting the teams, making it like a real league instead of kind of like an amateur league. That's just kind of what the AAF felt like to me.
Right. And I think the brand was lacking for the AAF as well. And I think something that the XFL did a good job to back in the spring is I think they realized that they can't compete with the NFL. And there's not going to be a lot of leagues that can compete with the NFL. It's the NFL. It's the biggest sports league in America. I think if the XFL can kind of be almost like a minor league system to the NFL and give these maybe college players, old college football players, a chance at redemption and a chance for them to showcase their talents to the NFL, then I'm all for it.
Right, I totally agree. I mean, you hear of a bunch of guys that got signed. What was the quarterback's name? He went to the Colts.
P.J. Walker.
P.J. Walker.
He was on track to be the MVP of the league.
Yeah, he was. And, I mean, he got a job. Like, these dudes are going to continually produce. You're going to see a lot of these guys that go undrafted in the NFL end up getting cut by NFL teams and going in, hopefully into this league and making a name for themselves and things like that.
And I think a few guys got signed from the AAF to the NFL as well when it went under. So the market for that is definitely there. So yeah, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, now part owner of the XFL. Big sports news today. It'll be interesting to see what they can accomplish in the spring. Special thanks to our Showcase Sports Show ref for that whistle noise. Let's talk a little NBA here, some notable games. Last time we talked, I know we were talking about Lakers-Clippers. That game kind of kicked off the NBA bubble there in Orlando. Two of the better teams in the Western Conference came down to the wire. LeBron James didn't have one of his best games. I think he only had about 13, 15 points, but he saved his best for last, hitting a game winner to beat the Clippers.
Absolutely. So, what a game that was. Griff, I have a question for you about it. Does this change your view at all on your predictions for the Western Conference Finals from last week? I know you had said it was going to be Lakers and Nuggets. Does this change that, or does it you think it's consistent?
It doesn't change my confidence that I have in the Lakers. Let's be real, they have two of the better NBA players in the league. When you have a guy like LeBron James, one of the greatest players of all time, it's just hard to lose. I mean, you saw what he did, his just sheer dominance near the end there. He's just such a big body in the paint. It's hard to get a body on him. I think he missed the initial shot that he took, but he was able to get the offensive rebound and put it back in. So no, I wouldn't say it does. Like I said kind of in the last episode that we had, the Clippers are definitely capable of going to the Western Conference Finals. But honestly, I think the Nuggets are their own worst enemy. I think they have the talent, they have the team to do it. They're just young. And I'm just not sure if they have that playoff experience yet. I think they might be another year or two away from really making a threat at a championship run. We'll see, though.
Yeah, no, I totally feel you there, except for I kind of have the exact opposite opinion. I think that they have the playoff experience now after last year going in the first 2 rounds, both 7-game series. They went to Game 7 against the Spurs. They obviously won, moved on to play Portland, and ended up losing inevitably in Game 7. So I think that they kind of do actually have that playoff experience. I just think that they lack that extra superstar. To play up against AD and LeBron, you can't just have Jokic. You got to have one more solidified superstar. Yes, Jamal Murray can be that guy. I struggle to see that a lot with him. I think MPJ needs to step up into the role of being that pure scorer, being that extra superstar that can push them over the top. And speaking of MPJ, that brings us to our next notable game, the Nuggets and the Thunder today on Monday. It kicked off and it ended up actually going into overtime. Nikola Jokic had a 30-point triple-double, and MPJ dropped a career-high 37 points. That is the guy that the Nuggets need him to be. If he, I'm telling you, can be that superstar shooter. I mean, he went 12 for 16 from the field today, and tacking on 9 free throws. He hit 4 threes.
Right.
If that's the guy that they get in MPJ in the playoffs, obviously he's not battle-tested like...
That's going to be huge.
Right. He's the guy that'll push them over the top. So I actually believe that the Nuggets' playoff hopes hinge on MPJ. And I know that's a lot to put on a kid who's what? Is he 21 now, 22?
He's young. He's
very young.
Doesn't have a lot of game experience for sure.
Exactly. So that's a lot to put on him. That's why I think I agree with you when you say they're still a year or two away.
Right.
But, going off that, I really think that the battle experience in the playoffs is there.
Yeah, and I just think it's going to be tough to beat those teams who have those. They have championships, to their name. The Kawhi Leonards, the LeBron James, they've been there before and they've done it. So I just think they're still a couple years away, but we'll see what happens.
They need one more big piece to move on and beat those teams.
Correct. All right, Ebe, how about maybe another intriguing matchup? Raptors Heat. I know you were very high on the Miami Heat coming into this playoff bubble. Raptors Heat, I think the Raptors actually took that one from the Heat, 107-103. Fred VanVleet had 36 points. I think that's a career high. What did you see from the Heat today? What are kind of your thoughts on that game?
Disappointing they lost after I went to bat for them last week in the podcast. And honestly, I pinned this loss directly on Kendrick Nunn.
Yeah, you were hyping him up.
You
were so high on that guy.
I was hyping him up, and then he comes in and drops an 0 for 7 game.
That's right.
2 points in 16 minutes.
Embarrassing.
And only 2 assists. They need him to be more of a facilitator and more of an automatic guard if they want to go far. Now, the Raptors, on the other hand, coming already off a huge win, keep in mind, against the Los Angeles Lakers. Now they come in and beat the Heat. Another huge win for them. I was wrong. Last week, I came in here and I said that I didn't think they were as good as everyone thought. And I was wrong. I'm backtracking on my word now. I think they're real contenders.
I think the entire Toronto Raptors team sat down and listened to our Episode 1 podcast, and they used that as fuel. They put that on the bulletin board, and I think... They're a good team. I think they got a good squad. Of course, they're the defending champs for a reason without Kawhi. So they still got a good team. Kyle Lowry, he balled out for them. So look, it's a good team.
Do you think they're a real threat to the Bucks?
They could be, I think. Yes, I think they're a bigger threat than the Heat are. That's just my opinion. But I question Jimmy Butler over there in Miami. I just, after his last few stints with the Sixers and the Timberwolves, even the Bulls, I question his heart. And I'm just not sure if he has that championship mentality. The Raptors do. They have a ring under their belt. And I just question Jimmy Butler's ability to perform at a superstar level when the stage is at its highest.
I unfortunately agree with you. I love JB as a player. But I think you're right. His heart scares me. I just don't think he's a very good team player. Maybe not necessarily on the floor, but in the locker room. The stories of him challenging Kat in Minnesota.
Yeah.
The stuff going on with Kat's girlfriend in Minnesota.
All right, that was...
There's just some stuff you got to keep off limits. So I'm with you on there. I'm not a big Jimmy Butler guy. especially off the court.
Talented player. I agree. He has to get over that hump,
and
I think.
He's their number one option, so he's got to get over
I think he is his own worst enemy, and I think he sometimes can be cancerous in a team's locker room.
I absolutely agree.
And that's just the cold truth, unfortunately, I think. Speaking of a team with a lot of personality, they have 2/3 of the 2013 Oklahoma City Thunder team. It's the Houston Rockets, who came out victorious over the weekend against the Bucks. Also, known for their small ball. They love to shoot the three. What were your thoughts about that game? Did anything catch your eye?
Yeah, it was surprising to me, just the outcome of the game with them beating the Bucks. I thought, obviously, the Bucks were a better team. I'm not a huge believer in the Houston Rockets, just specifically because of their small ball approach. I'm a big Clint Capella guy, so I thought he was a good fit down there. It was kind of unfortunate to see them have to split ways, especially because now they don't have any bigs, really.
Right.
Who is it, Tucker, that plays the 5?
Yeah, and he's maybe 6'5" with his shoes on?
Yeah, 6'5", 6'7", somewhere around there. You're going to have problems against teams like the Los Angeles Lakers. How are you going to be able to guard Anthony Davis while at the same time on the floor you're going to have LeBron and then either JaVale McGee or Dwight Howard? How are you going to be able to rebound the ball? There's no way. That is such a huge height advantage. Not even just the Lakers. You're not going to be able to guard Nikola Jokic. Who's going to guard him in the paint? He's already dropping a 30-point triple-double. What is he going to do to a team that can't body him?
Right. So I'll agree with you on that one. I think bigs are going to usually have a pretty big day when they face the Houston Rockets.
Who's going to guard Giannis if they make it to the finals?
Yeah.
There's no way.
But I'll tell you one thing, E. I'm high on the Houston Rockets coming into this Orlando bubble, and I'll tell you why. It's the 3-point shooting. It is just remarkable how many threes they attempt and put up during the game. But not only that, E, I just think they're well rested, and I think in years past, James Harden, he's just tired at the end of the year, as well as the other Rockets teams. Now, with this setup in Orlando, I think this is the perfect situation for the Houston Rockets to make a deep run. You got Russell Westbrook, who's explosive, great finisher in the lane. James Harden, he's going to average 30 points a game. So I think they have that star power to compete with some of these teams like the Bucks, like the Lakers, Clippers, Nuggets. I think in a best-of-7 game series, I think the Rockets have a good shot of winning those series.
So, but the way to shut this team down with the 3-point shooting is just to have good perimeter defense. And I think a team like the Clippers with Kawhi and PG on the perimeter, that's kind of locked down for me. I'll take my chance with the Clippers. I don't know. Do you think that they match up well with the Clippers?
I do. I think they do. Of course, they don't have the bigs that the Clippers do. But like I said, they're such an explosive team from beyond the arc. In years past, you see the Warriors, teams like that, winning championships with just their 3-point shooting. So I'm not saying the Rockets are the Warriors, of course, but James Harden's one of the greater 3-point shooters in the league. So don't count them out. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying they're going to win it all or anything, but I think they're going to be a tough out come postseason play.
Yeah, I could definitely see them making some noise over there. I just truly don't see them getting past the second round, or at least definitely not the Western Conference Finals. I think there's a 0% chance. I'd put my life on it that they make it to the finals. There's no way.
Yeah, it should be interesting. Rockets are a good team. Tough out. But what about the Bucks? I know we both have them going far. I think we both have them going into the finals based off our last episode. What about the Bucks did you kind of see over the weekend that impressed you?
I'm sticking with my pick of the Bucks to win the Eastern Conference, but in order for them to do that and go to the finals, their bench has got to play better. In this game against the Rockets, they only had 18 bench points. You need guys like Ilyasova, Robin Lopez, Grant Hill, Kyle Korver. These guys got to step up, and they got to be adding at least 6 to 8 to 10 points a game each. Really help out their starters. I mean, Giannis had 36 points, Middleton 27, Brook Lopez had 23. You cannot depend on just those three to score all your points and get it out of the way.
The Lopez twins have got to be big for the Bucks, I think. I think they're both very talented bigs.
I agree. Especially Brook.
Yeah, but I just think the Bucks, they're capable of making some noise, of course. They had the best record in the NBA prior to the suspension of the NBA, and I think they're just going to be just fine. All right, it's that time to talk some baseball, and boy, has a lot happened since the last time we spoke. And I think we got to start this baseball segment off with a little Joe Kelly.
Yeah, Joe Kelly. Wow.
That guy.
Last Tuesday night, Dodgers playing the Astros for the first time since the Astros won the World Series in 2017. Playing each other for the first time in Houston, and Joe Kelly comes in the game. We already kind of knew that because of the cheating scandal, there was going to be some beanball happening.
Yep.
Sure enough, Joe Kelly enters the game in the bottom of 6. He throws behind Bregman. And as my guy Matt Gregory from the Small Ball podcast said...
Shout out right there.
Yep, they dropped their episode today. He said that when Alex Bregman was thrown at, Kelly threw behind him. Bregman did the right thing, put his bat down. He knew he was wrong, and he just went to first base.
Very respectful.
Right, true. But I gained a lot of respect for Bregman there. I mean, I didn't have much left after this whole thing. But that was just a little bit better, that he knows he was wrong and he's going to get thrown at, and he's just accepted it. Yep. Anyway, throws at him. Carlos Correa walks up and strikes out swinging, okay? Joe Kelly gets him on a breaking ball.
Filthy pitch, too. It was a good pitch.
It was. Carlos Correa then starts whining. He starts yelling and just absolutely childish whining at Joe Kelly about, throw me a fastball, because he can't connect with off speed. Hit the ball. I'm sorry that Joe Kelly threw you a strike and you struck out, dude. Go to the dugout and shut your mouth.
Last time I checked, I don't think the Astros are hitting very well. George Springer's slumping. Altuve's slumping. Was I right or was I right? I think I said there was going to be an over-under 3 balls thrown at the Astros. There wasn't 3, but that might as well have counted towards 3 because it was that significant.
So after Correa whiffs on a pitch and strikes out, he starts whining at Joe Kelly. Then Joe Kelly and him start exchanging words, and Joe Kelly starts mocking him. He starts making, like the little crying face.
I think he felt bad for Correa.
You gotta love
it so much.
And the dude is sitting there whining about throwing him a fastball. He wants a fastball. How are you going to ask an opposing pitcher to throw you a fastball?
Yeah,
my goodness.
Maybe the All-Star game, but no, not in a 60-game season.
Ridiculous. So Joe Kelly, words start getting exchanged. All of a sudden, here come the benches. Benches cleared. They start getting into it. Joe Kelly is just my hero, man. He throws at at Bregman, whatever, walks Bregman, we move on, strikes out Correa. The guy starts whining, so he gets in his face, starts mocking him, right? Well, how about Rob Manfred dropping the ball once again? Imagine that. That's the second time this week he's dropped the ball. Okay, he's now suspended Joe Kelly for 8 games, which is the equivalent to a 22-game suspension.
It's a long time. That's a hefty... That's more than any Houston Astro player.
That's almost a sixth of the year. That is so ridiculous and not okay. 22 games, that's equivalent to.
Right. And the Houston Astros didn't get penalized for 1 game. For all the investigations that they were going under.
Ridiculous. Manfred is just a joke at this point.
Real quick, you gotta love the bullpens running out during a brawl. I mean, they want to be a part of the brawl so bad. I mean,
you got these 45 seconds.
Yeah, and you always have that one big hefty guy that's like sprinting as fast as he can from center field. Man, it's like he hasn't burned that many calories since he started playing in the league. But I mean, it's just hilarious. That's such a great part of baseball. And usually, by the time they got there, the action was kind of already over. So I think that's just hilarious. But I don't think there is a man on the face of the earth that hates the Houston Astros more than Joe Kelly.
That's true.
That guy.
Or our guy, Matt Gregory. He calls him the Asterisks now.
Yeah,
gotta love
true. That. Maybe if you're a Yankees fan, or maybe, they're all just Chapman. But Joe Kelly, I think a lot of people agreed with what he did. But,
he's a legend.
The MLB came down hard on him.
They did, but they can't keep him out of the Hall of Fame for that act of...
he shouldn't be inducted into Cooperstown ASAP. I think he should retire right now.
He's a hero.
If he never wins a ring with the Dodgers, I think this is the highest moment in his career.
Well, and he probably won't win a ring with the Dodgers.
You're right. Yeah, well, they'll get there. They just won't win it.
So going back to Rob Manfred, I think we should start a new segment on this podcast, Griff, is what did Rob Manfred do wrong this week?
It's a weekly occurrence. So
it truly is.
Hey, episode 3, everybody be on the lookout. Rob Manfred, every week from here on out.
So not only did he wrongly suspend... Okay, maybe not wrongly, I understand. He threw at him, sure, suspended for a game or 2. So not only did he extensively and inappropriately suspended him for way too long, now he comes out and says that the league is in jeopardy right now with all of the COVID cases happening. Now we have spurts happening in St. Louis and even a couple coaches in Philadelphia. He said this week that the league is in jeopardy, and if they can't control the outbreak better, they are just going to cancel the season. They even went as far as to go to the programmers, so the TV channels, and tell them to start getting some programming ready in case they have to cancel the games. Now, he says that, which obviously is already a wrong move. You don't show your hand to the public like that. You keep that inside the organization, of course. He now comes out today and says, We are playing. The players need to be better, but I am not a quitter in general, and there is no reason to quit now. We have to be fluid, but it is manageable. What a joke.
Strong words, man. That can't go over well with the players there. I think what maybe he's trying to say is that it's going to take a lot for maybe the season to get canceled, but he is solely putting the blame on the players here is what it sounds like.
You can't blame the players when you declined a bubble. You should have had a bubble. You could have fixed this. Don't use them as a scapegoat for your mistake. This is brutal.
And we talked about this last week pretty thoroughly, I think. I just think it's hard to ask a Marlins player or a Cardinals player to... They're just not in that bubble like the NBA and the NHL is, so they're more prone to going out, doing other things, parties, clubs, that kind of stuff.
Not even just that. They go home and see their families. Their children are hanging out with their friends.
And they're traveling all around the country, too.
Right. Ultimate ways to get exposed, okay? It's going to happen. So either handle it better or you should have had a bubble.
Yep.
So now, Steven Souza Jr., okay? Steven Souza Jr., a Cubs outfielder, came out and absolutely torched Manfred. And I couldn't... You want to talk about another hero. Here we go. Steven Souza, new favorite player. He says, and I quote, "I'm probably going to be a little biased here, but I just don't think we've handled this since the beginning very well. I don't think what Manfred has done for the sport has been very good. I don't think the way that everything was publicly humiliated was good. I just don't think it's been good. I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed as a player to watch this take place because when I leave this game, I want to leave it for the generations, and we do this for the fans. And there's just been so much distraction and so much hidden agendas in all these discussions that it's been almost just embarrassing. Like I said, I don't know any other way to put it."
Wow.
I love it.
Wow. And that's putting Manfred on watch right there. I mean, he's calling him out.
He is, and he's 100% right. Like I said, you got to keep these things inside of the MLB office. You cannot leak to the press that you're telling TV channels to go put on other programming.
No, yep. And I think Steven Souza has every right to be upset here, and I think he's like a lot of players that are upset with the MLB and Rob Manfred, and I think that's why it took so long to get a deal done to get the season back going again. It's just, I don't think they're on the same page. They've been that way for a while. The MLB, I don't know. I think it's a dying sport, unfortunately, and I don't think has helped them in any cause.
I agree. They had a huge opportunity here to capitalize, being the first sport back after the COVID-19 hiatus, and they blew it. And, I totally understand the Marlins got COVID because they were out partying and hitting the clubs and the bars. That is not okay, and I totally agree with Manfred on that part. But 29 of the other 30 teams so far have been they've been responsible. Yeah. You cannot put all of it on the players when you should have had a bubble, dude. That's your fault. Tough. It's wrong.
It's a tough situation for everybody, but it definitely could have been handled better.
So now, do you think Souza gets suspended? Or, I'm sorry, maybe not suspended, but fined for his comments against the commissioner? You see that in the NFL a lot.
I don't know. It may be. I think it's definitely a good chance. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. I honestly have no idea.
Well, stay tuned for next week's episode. That's probably what he'll do wrong.
Rob Manfred. Everybody, hey, if you hate Rob Manfred, this is the show to tune into. So I think we might just officially change our name to the I Hate Rob Manfred show. Which brings us to the corona outbreaks across Major League Baseball right now. We got the Marlins with 20 positive tests right now. They haven't played in a week. And, of course, the St. Louis Cardinals, one of the newest teams to get hit with corona. 13 COVID cases. Their series against the Detroit Tigers got postponed. Good news, though. Philadelphia Phillies have seemed to have no more positive tests. They're playing the Yankees as of now, tonight. So that's something to be on the look for just across Major League Baseball. How do you think baseball's handling the coronavirus right now? A week ago, we weren't even sure if we were going to be playing baseball at this point. But what do you kind of think of everything going on?
I just struggle to see how they're going to end up finishing the season. What are they going to do with all these games that they missed? Are they just going to have a week gap, in between the end of the regular season and the playoffs for these teams to catch up? But then that's not really fair because a team could go in really hot to the playoffs, and a team that was hot can now cool off over that week before the playoffs. That's just, I don't like it. Yeah. I think it was designed very poorly, and I can't see it ending well.
It's definitely a different season for sure. But one thing I did hear that they might do is kind of just go based off winning percentage, because some of these teams might not even play 60 games. They could just do something where whoever has the best winning percentage gets to go into the postseason. I know that's something that the MLB is kind of toyed with there. It's going to be interesting to see what they do. Hopefully, the Marlins, I think they're going to try to play here the next few days. Hopefully, Cardinals not looking as bright, but
I heard the Marlins are actually I think the MLB might start forcing them to pick up players in their minor league system, or they're at an alternate location, I guess. Pick those guys up, and even some free agents.
Yeah,
like it's gonna be like a beer league softball team picking up players when they can't show up. Yeah, it's gonna be brutal.
Hopefully, they don't take any players from our softball team. We're currently 0-6, so don't do that. Yeah, real quick note: we do play in an adult softball team, me and E, and we had high expectations coming into the year. We're 0-6.
We suck.
We're gonna go 1-6. I have a lot of faith for Thursday's game. But anyways. That's what it's going to be like, the MLB. It's going to be a lot of weird signings and free agents. It's going to be crazy. All right, it's that time for, let's evaluate here the last week of the Major League Baseball season, and let's discuss the top teams. We'll do 2 teams each. Does that sound good, from the AL and the NL? I'll get us started off here in the American League. My first team, this isn't going to be a surprise to many of you. It's the New York Yankees. These guys are just playing on another level right now. I think they won their game again today against the Phillies. I think that was the Phillies' first game in like a week. But they're now 8-1. That team has every piece to being a contender and winning a World Series, especially in a 60-game season. Everybody's super well rested. Their pitching staff, Garrett Cole, did he win the Cy Young last year?
He did.
He did. He was the Cy Young winner. And then, of course, Aaron Judge is just playing out of his mind. Playing better, perhaps, than what he played a couple years ago his rookie season when he broke the rookie home run record. So
as of right now, he's the leading MVP candidate.
Yep. And, you can't go wrong with that bullpen. Ottavino, even got Zach Britton getting saves in there. Of course, Aroldis Chapman is pumping in gas, even as he gets older here. So the Yankees are definitely a fun team to watch in the AL. My second team here, you can't go wrong with them either. It's the Minnesota Twins, currently second place in the AL, just a half game behind the Yankees. This team just hit so many home runs, E. I mean, they broke the home run record last year, and they're just playing lights out right now. Nelson Cruz is playing like he's 25.
He hit another walk-off today.
Yeah, walk-off against the, who was it?
The Pirates, actually. Pittsburgh Pirates.
That's right.
Kind of a weird matchup. You never think about the Twins playing
we got Pirates. All kinds of weird interleague matchups this season. But anyways, the Twins are just on fire right now. I definitely want to see a Yankees-Twins series right now. That'd be an interesting one.
Who do you think's better?
I got to go with the Yankees right now, just because they got more star power up there in New York.
The pitching staff's much better in New York, I believe.
Yeah, I agree. But don't count out the Twins either. Who knows in a 60-game season. But I think I would take the Yankees over the Twins right now. But those are my 2 hottest teams in the AL right now. They happen to be the top 2 teams in the AL right now, record-wise. It's the Yankees and Twins for me in the AL. What do you have in the NL?
To go off that, too, I think, honestly, they're the 2 best teams in the AL. Maybe throw the Rays in the mix. I mean, they are...
Yeah.
Man,
surprised the Orioles. I saw they were in 3rd in the standings.
Yeah.
5-3.
I can't imagine that'll last, but we'll see.
Hey, boy, anything is possible.
Okay, over to the NL. I have 2 teams here. The Chicago Cubs. They are definitely outdoing expectations.
Go Cubs, go.
Yep, I thought they were going to be good, but wow, they are on fire. Tyler Chatwood coming out and balling out on the mound, man.
He's pitching like there's some flames under him or something. He's a little pep in his step this season.
Yep, they are clicking on all cylinders. I think they are hands down kind of the best team in the National League right now.
Okay, who's your second team here? Because that's some high praise for the Cubs.
And I want this known. There's no bias behind this pick, or else I would have put them first. My Colorado Rockies, 7-2, tied for their best start in franchise history.
Wow.
They're balling right now.
Wow.
And as Griff, kind of cliche for you to say, Trevor Story, Dark Horse MVP.
I've said it once. I'll say it a billion more times. This kid is special.
He is. He is.
I said it last time.
He's producing on all cylinders.
He is. I think he's hitting 350 right now. He's just killing it. He's 4 homers.
You know, the best part of the 7-2 start is Nolan Arenado is not even playing very well.
Yeah.
Despite today, I mean, he hit a 2-run shot today in the 6th. Other than that, he's hitting... I think he's hitting 235. Yeah. That's not Nolan-esque.
And you know he's going to hit eventually, so that just makes this offense even more scary,
They're
more dangerous.
7-2, and Nolan's not even their best player. Their MVP is not even playing his best baseball.
Yep.
Not even close.
Yep. He's made some gems defensively. I don't know if you've seen the
last
couple ones. I think the Rockies have that left side of the infield, man, probably the best in Major League Baseball.
I think
that's a fact.
I agree, hands down.
Yep.
Now we'll see if they can go on and finish off the series strong against the Giants before they move on to Seattle.
We also got some injury news, unfortunately, around Major League Baseball. Mike Soroka, torn Achilles, out for the year today, starting pitcher for the Atlanta Braves.
That's
who are
huge.
also out to a pretty good start to the season. I think they're 7-3.
There are a lot of favorites around the league, and that's a big hit right there.
That is a big hit to their pitching staff. I know Soroka was really, he's an up-and-coming pitcher. He's really coming into his own, too, so that's unfortunate for the Atlanta Braves. Also, for the Los Angeles Angels, Shohei Ohtani, of course, he's the modern-day Babe Ruth, hits and pitches. Unfortunately, he has a right arm strain, so they're going to shut him down pitching-wise. He's day-to-day right now hitting, so we're going to have to see what happens with Shohei Ohtani. Of course, he's coming off that Tommy John surgery from last year. Big blow for the Angels and their fan base, honestly, over there in Japan.
Let's head over to the boys on ice. Things got kicked off in the NHL over Saturday and Sunday, 10 straight games. It was great. Things got kicked off with the top 4 seeds in each conference playing their round-robin tournament to determine the seeding. How that's going to work is they're just going to play each other, and then whoever has the best record, obviously it will go in descending order from 1 to 4. Meanwhile, the rest of the teams are all playing a qualifying round to see who will get into the playoffs, and that is going to be a best-of-5 series. This is the first time since 1987 that it's been a best-of-5 series instead of a best-of-7. Griff, this weekend, what game popped off to you?
Well, it's got to be the St. Louis Blues against the Colorado Avalanche. What an intense game this was.
No kidding.
It came down to a Nazem Kadri goal with 0.1 seconds to play. They had to review it and all that kind of stuff. But the
About
Avs,
a 10-minute review. That was wild.
Yeah, the Avs, they were on a power play near the end of the third period, and they just were able to get it in the net there at the end with 0.1 to go. They beat the Blues 2-1, which is huge for their round-robin play. Puts the game up on the Blues when it comes to the seeding for the top 4 seeds in the conference.
Absolutely, and I actually really like both teams here in the West. I think they both have a chance to go to the Cup Finals, and I believe with guys like Jordan Binnington and Ryan O'Reilly playing as well as they've been playing this year, I think the Blues have a real shot at the Cup.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, these could be the 2 best teams in the NHL. I know the Avs were really banged up when it came to the suspension of the league way back in March, but they got Grubauer back in goal. I think the Avs had something like 5 players injured, which was tied for the most with 2 other teams in the NHL before the bubble. So the Avs are at full strength. Everybody's at full strength in the NHL, which is exciting to see.
Another thrilling game on Monday was the Lightning and the Capitals. Ended up going into the first ever playoff shootout. Going into the last period, it was tied 2-2. Nobody scored, ended up going into the first overtime period. Obviously, nobody scored there. Going into the shootout, TJ Oshie and the Capitals strike first, getting the first goal. Then it was off to the races for the Lightning. Braden Point with a goal. And it was finished off by a Nikita Kucherov game-winning goal in the shootout.
Well, I'll tell you what, the Capitals definitely had their opportunities in this one. They had 4 power play opportunities, and were only able to convert on 1 of those. That's a 25% power play percentage. They got to do better. If they just put 1 of those in the net, they would have won the game.
Absolutely, it would have been a totally different story. And then all of a sudden, we're looking at the Capitals. Definitely could have been that number 1 seed.
Yep, absolutely. Well, another series that has been entertaining to say the least, it's been the Montreal Canadiens between the Pittsburgh Penguins. That series is tied right now at 1 apiece. Game 1 went to the Canadiens in overtime thanks to a Jeff Petrie OT goal that put the Canadiens in front 3-2 to win Game 1. And then Game 2 was simply dominated by the Penguins. Matt Murray had a heck of a game in between the pipes. He had 26 saves. And then Sidney Crosby, he's been doing it for so long, had a first period goal there to help the Penguins win Game 2. So that series is tied 1 apiece. So definitely it's been a competitive week in hockey. Of course, no positive tests for the NHL, just like the NBA. So that bubble seems to be working.
Now we go back to the gridiron. Let's start off with talking about the players opting out because of COVID. The number is now up to 48 players across the league. Big names are coming out now. You got C.J. Mosley, linebacker for the Jets. Damian Williams, obviously on the Super Bowl winning Chiefs roster. And now the New England Patriots are just being decimated with these opt-outs. 2 of their biggest pieces on defense, Patrick Chung and Dante Hightower, are now out for this upcoming year.
And, don't forget about guys like Nate Solder, Devin Funchess, Marquise Goodwin, even Jawan James, who just opted out today for the Broncos.
Give me a break.
Tough. That's a tough loss for the Broncos at that right tackle position. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've been hearing that this guy's the greatest thing since sliced bread. But you know what?
Sliced bread's pretty good.
It's now the second year that we're not going to be able to see him play. He was injured all of last year. Now we don't get him again. Very frustrating.
It's frustrating. It's a tough situation because just this outbreak has forced so many of these players to kind of second guess what they're doing this season. You can't blame Jawan James for opting out, of course, but it's just tough because the Broncos are paying this guy millions of dollars to play that right tackle position, a position that the Broncos have so desperately needed these last few years.
Right.
Ever since, it's probably been 6 or 7 years since they've had a
Ryan
good right
Clady.
tackle. Yeah, so it's definitely frustrating for the Broncos regardless.
Well, and imagine how the Patriots and the Jets feel. The Jets just lost C.J. Mosley. He's their anchor in their defense.
Right.
Boy, you want to talk about a bad defense now? You lose Jamal Adams, and then now you lose C.J. Mosley?
Jets are hurting.
Oh,
They're
my
hurting
goodness. That's just awful.
And then, Damian Williams, running back for the Super Bowl champion Chiefs.
But
he played a big part.
Don't forget about the Patriots. Their defense is toast now.
Yep.
With Patrick Chung and Hightower, their best linebacker and their best safety. Done.
Well, and they have the most players who have opted out, correct? The New England Patriots?
Right. I think they have 8
players.
Yeah.
Yep. So
that's just insane.
This is a time in the NFL, unlike another, just like all these other sports. It's going to be interesting to see who else opts out till the season starts.
In other news, the Seattle Seahawks, they are open right now.
Yeah, how about this?
According to Pete Carroll, they are open to signing 2 head cases.
Yeah.
Re-signed Josh Gordon and now Antonio Brown.
2 very talented head cases. You can't forget
Very true.
that part.
Antonio Brown just got suspended 8 games. Imagine that.
Wow.
Who knows what he did this time?
That's some big news.
All that came out was that they were different NFL rule violations.
Yeah, God only knows what that could have been. My goodness.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it was another music video that he put out.
Yeah,
the
me
first
neither.
one, the music was just so bad, and the video was even worse.
My ears were bleeding. I was bleeding out.
So there it is. Let's chalk that one up to another Antonio Brown music video incident.
And of course, I'm not sure what the Seahawks are really thinking here with Josh Gordon too. I know marijuana is legal in Washington, so Josh Gordon, I'm sure he would be very happy up there in the Pacific Northwest. But the Seahawks, I don't know. He might not be on the field if they sign him.
Speaking of the Seahawks, I know we brought it up last episode, but the NFL 100 finished off their top 100 players, and I've never seen any sort of injustice like this. They have Russell Wilson at number 2, okay?
Wow.
And he's the second-ranked quarterback.
That's pretty high.
Griff, can you take a guess at who number 1 is?
Is it, I don't know. Who is it? Is he a running back?
Well, if this was a 2018 draft, a lot of the GMs and scouts probably would have said, yes, a running back. Number 1, Lamar Jackson takes the cake. Boy, what a travesty.
Above Mahomes.
Don't get me wrong. Lamar's an amazing player, and so is Russ. Okay, Russ, in my opinion,
Russ above Mahomes, too.
Yeah, Russ is, in my opinion, second best quarterback in the league, okay? But behind Patrick Mahomes. How do you not put Patty Mahomes at 1? I know Lamar won the MVP, but come on.
I mean,
Mahomes is just a better player.
He just won a Super Bowl. I mean, he's a Super Bowl MVP. Also, to have Russell Wilson above Mahomes, too, is very interesting.
Dude, this list is just so whack. I can't take it anymore. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, where would you put Lamar on that list? I mean, just your opinion alone.
In the best quarterbacks?
Yes.
I would probably put him around the 4 to 5 range.
Okay, so he's a top 5 quarterback.
Yeah.
In the league.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he just won an MVP. You can't.
I know.
You can't go against that. Don't get me wrong. He had an incredible year.
Right. Well, we haven't really seen a quarterback like this since Michael Vick. And some may argue he's a better runner than Michael Vick. He is. He might be a better player than Michael Vick was.
He is.
Michael Vick never won an MVP.
I love Michael Vick, okay? Nothing is more exciting than watching Michael Vick.
Revolutionary player.
Lamar's better. He's just better.
Yeah.
He is.
Well, college football is supposed to be starting here in less than a month. We got some new schedules for each conferences. It's looking like the Pac-12 is going 10-game conference schedule. ACC is going 11 games, which that includes Notre Dame because Notre Dame is playing in the ACC this fall. And also the Big Ten and the SEC are also following the Pac-12 in playing 10 conference games here. But any comments on those games? Is that a good idea to go conference only for these conferences?
Yeah, I think so. I think, I'm really excited for SEC football, them playing each other every week. Every week there's going to be a must-see game, whether it's Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Auburn. They're just going to be popping out like crazy. But I have a question for you considering the ACC.
Okay.
Now that they've included Notre Dame into their conference schedule, do you think this really pushes Notre Dame along to join the ACC?
I do. I really do, actually. I think Notre Dame, of course, they've been independent for, as long as I can remember, for a very long time. And I think they're ACC in basketball. So I think this could end up putting Notre Dame in the ACC for football. I think it would make sense for Notre Dame. I don't think Notre Dame is as traditionally powerful as they once were maybe in the 80s, 90s. They just don't have that draw like Alabama does or that Clemson does right now. So I think maybe putting them in a conference, I don't know. I think they're on that path.
I think it's just inevitable that eventually it's going to happen, whether it be the ACC or the Big Ten.
Backtracking to the Pac-12 too, recently there's been a Pac-12 union group from among some of the players, student athletes that have started a movement called We Are United.
Yeah, essentially this group is pretty much founded on trying to get student equality and to make sure that they are safe, and it just honestly highlights a lot of issues that players continuously have with the NCAA. I'm going to go ahead and read off their agenda here. This was tweeted by Oregon standout Penei Sewell. It says, and I quote, "To ensure future generations of college athletes will be treated fairly, we are united. Because NCAA sports exploits college athletes physically, economically, and academically, also disproportionately harm black college athletes. In rejecting the NCAA's claims that Black Lives Matter while also systematically exploiting black athletes nationwide. Because we are being asked to play college sports in a pandemic, in a system without enforced health and safety standards, and without transparency about COVID cases on our teams, the risk to ourselves, our families, and our communities. We must have adequate COVID testing to help protect our health. Because we are prohibited from securing representation while being asked to sign documents that may serve as liability waivers." And this just keeps going on about certain issues that they have with the NCAA. But a couple of those really stood out to me that I actually agree with this movement on, and I would stand behind them 100%. And that is that they are being, prohibited to use representation to sign these documents. That's just not fair. They can't get a lawyer, they can't get an agent to give these kids, these college kids, advice on, these are possibly life-changing decisions that they're making, and they can't have any sort of representation to help them through it. I think that's just not okay. And, not even going off that, that's not my only thing with the NCAA. I find it ridiculous that they make millions and millions and millions of dollars off of these kids' names and let them play for people's entertainment, and yet these players don't make a dime. That's not even fair. They can't even make money off of a video game.
Yeah, right. And that's been an argument with the NCAA for a long time, and that's why they've ruled that these athletes will be getting compensation here pretty soon. But I'll tell you what, this is a huge deal, I think, not only for the Pac-12, but for other conferences too. I think this is a big deal for college football, and it might affect some of these players who may end up sitting out the season this fall, if there is a season, of course. But I think it's a big deal wherever you stand on this issue. I think it's a very big deal.
Honestly, I think that this is totally going to catch on like wildfire. I think it is just going to start spreading all over the country. You're going to see a lot of athletes, opting out. And, I think this might start a chain reaction and hit the transfer portal really hard. Because you're going to see a lot of, really superstar players opt out. And, those teams are going to have to fill those positions. So I think it's going to start just a huge chain reaction for a lot of players and teams across the nation. So, Griff, I have a question for you about the NCAA. Yep. Do you think that the way that they're going right now, that the NCAA is sustainable, that they can keep going as a governing body over all of these schools? Or do you think that teams and certain schools are going to start to drop out of the NCAA and almost kind of start a new revolution?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a possibility. There could be a day sometime in the near future that there are no longer conferences as well. And that there could be just a solely just individual commissioner that is in charge of all college football, kind of like all the other professional leagues. No question that the NCAA is in trouble, especially with all these student athletes speaking out on them. I think it's a possibility that they could be going under maybe sooner than we think. I don't know. It's definitely an interesting topic to discuss.
Absolutely. I actually love your idea of kind of the one ruling commissioner and moving it more towards a professional sports league. Because honestly, I think that's what it's going to turn into. They make more money than a lot of the pro leagues,
right?
And I think they're going to end up turning that into paying the players. We've already seen that starting to happen in other, you had mentioned it, in other states and things like that.
Right.
So all the prep work is starting to happen for them to start paying these athletes, and then it's really going to turn into a professional business. And it's either, I don't know, it's going to be interesting to see where things go, but I really do believe that the NCAA either needs to make some massive changes or they're going to be toast. I think a lot of the athletics departments and things like that are going to have no choice but to pull out, because I think there's going to start to be a lot of backlash with a lot of the players.
Yeah, and one last thing too, I think it would generate a more fair system, I think, for these teams, because right now what you have in college football, it's Look, the SEC is above the rest of the pack. They're the cream of the crop. I think that would generate a more fair playing field for some of these conferences and schools. I mean, for example, the Pac-12 just does not make as much money as the SEC does. And I know the Big Ten makes a lot of money too, but I would even put them below the SEC when it comes to just the money that is being generated. So I think this is an opportunity for more money to be made for everybody involved.
Yeah, no, totally. I definitely see what you're saying. I think it's going to go one of two ways once they, because I think it's just inevitable that they're going to start paying the players. Once they do, I think it's either going to go one of two ways. Number one, either you're right and it's going to be much more even across the board, or number two, it's going to be even more lopsided because you're going to see these huge programs like Alabama, a lot of the SEC schools you're talking about, USC, Ohio State, these huge schools being able to offer the players more money than you'd say a Temple or North Carolina. You're not going to see those teams being able to pay as much, so it's going to kind of depend on how that is ruled, if they pay all of the players the same, if it's just one big share, or if it's based on performance and things like that, because then it's going to just turn into almost like a Major League Baseball type of thing where you're going to see the Yankees and the Red Sox shelling out money while teams like the Rays and the Twins are struggling.
For sure. And I think what makes college football so special, too, are the conferences and the kind of the tradition behind the conferences and the bowl games, like the Rose Bowl game. You know, the Pac-12 plays the Big Ten. I mean, that's been that way for years. That would be taking that part away from college football, too. And even college basketball, you wouldn't have some of these rivalries that have disappeared just through these conference realignments as well over the last decade or two.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
To finish it off, we got some games to watch for this week. Corn, what do you got?
In the NBA, Thursday night, August 6th, I have the Lakers and the Rockets. That's going to be a huge game.
Okay.
The Lakers just clinched up the number 1 seed, but the Rockets are still kind of bumping around down there, 4 to 5, maybe even the 3 range. So, yeah, that'll be interesting to see, but that's must-watch TV with Harden, Westbrook, and LeBron and AD.
Well, in baseball, it's got to be the Dodgers versus the Padres. A little 3-game series. Padres took game 1 tonight, 5-4. So it'll be interesting to see if the Dodgers can bounce back in a tight NL West race here in the next couple days.
And lastly, in the NHL, we have the Predators and Coyotes battling it out in the series right now. The next game is going to be Tuesday, August 4th and Friday, August 7th. Both games are must-watch.
Once again, thank you so much to all of our listeners who tuned in here to the second ever episode of the Showcase Sports Show. E, do you have any more closing thoughts?
Yeah, once again, follow us on Instagram at Showcase Sports Media and check out our website, showcasesportsmedia.com. Thanks again for listening.
That's going to be a wrap. Cheers from Showcase Sports Media. We'll see you next week.